The Poverello'S Round Table by Sister M. Aquina Barth, O.S.F. June 13th, St. Anthony of Padua, Confessor, First Order. Anthony was born in the year 1195 at Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, where his father was a captain in the royal army. Already at the age of 15 years, the youth had entered the congregation of Canons Regular of St. Augustine, and was devoting himself with great earnestness to study and to the practice of piety in the monastery at Coimbra, where a significant event, which occurred in the year 1220, changed his entire career. The relics of St. Berard and companions, the first martyrs of the Franciscan order, were being brought from Africa to Coimbra. At the sight of them, Anthony was seized with an intense desire to suffer martyrdom as a Franciscan missionary in Africa. In response to his repeated and humble petitions, the permission of his superiors to transfer to the Franciscan order was reluctantly given. At his departure, one of the canons said to him ironically, "Go then. Perhaps you will become a saint in the new order." Anthony replied, "Brother, when you hear that I have become a saint, you will surely praise God for it." In the quiet little Franciscan convent at Coimbra, he received a friendly reception, and in the very same year his earnest wish to be sent to the missions in Africa was fulfilled. But God had decreed otherwise. Anthony scarcely set foot on African soil when he was seized with a grievous illness. Even after recovering from it, he was so weak that, however resigned to the will of God, he had to board a boat back to Portugal. But a storm drove the ship to the coast of Sicily, and Anthony went to Assisi, where the general chapter of the order was to be held in May 1221. As he still looked weak and sickly, and gave no evidence of his scholarship, no one paid any attention to the stranger until Father Gratian, provincial of Romagna, had compassion and sent him to the quiet little convent near Forli. There Anthony remained 9 months occupied in the lowliest duties about the kitchen convent, and to his heart's content he practiced interior as well as exterior mortification. But the hidden jewel was soon to appear in all of its brilliance. Anthony was sent to Forli with some other brethren to attend the ceremony of ordination. At the convent there the superior wanted someone to give an address for the occasion. Everybody excused himself, saying that he was not prepared, until Anthony was finally asked to give it. When he too excused himself most humbly, his superior ordered him to speak in obedience. Anthony began to speak in a very reserved manner, but soon holy animation seized him, and he spoke with such eloquence, learning, and unction that everybody was fairly amazed. When St. Francis was informed of the event, he gave Anthony the mission to preach all over Italy. At the request of the brethren, Anthony was later also commissioned to teach theology, but in such a manner, St. Francis distinctly wrote, that the spirit of prayer be not extinguished either in yourself or in the other brethren. St. Anthony himself placed greater value on the salvation of souls than on learning. For that reason, he never ceased to exercise his office as preacher along with the work of teaching. The concourse of hearers was sometimes so great that no church was large enough to accommodate the audiences, and he had to preach in the open air. He wrought veritable miracles of conversion. Deadly enemies were reconciled with each other. Thieves and usurers made restitution of their ill-gotten goods. Calumniators and detractors recanted and apologized. He was so energetic in defending the truths of the Catholic faith that many heretics re-entered the pale of the Church, so that Pope Gregory IX called him the Ark of the Covenant. Once he was preaching in Rimini, on the seacoast. He noticed that a group of heretics turned their backs to him and started to leave. Promptly, the preacher turned to the sea and called out to the fishes, "Since the heretics do not wish to listen to me, do you come and listen to me?" And marvelous to say, shoals of fish came swimming on, thrusting their heads out of the water as if to hear the preacher. At this the heretics fell at Anthony's feet and begged to be instructed in the truth. Anthony was no respecter of persons, but spoke fearlessly to the heart of any kind of sinner. The tyrant Ezzelino was at this time raging in Verona and Padua in a way that made everybody fear and tremble. Thousands of persons had been murdered on the slightest ground of suspicion. Anthony went to the palace and asked for an audience. It was granted. He stood before Ezzelino and said with holy indignation, "Cruel tyrant, when will you cease spilling innocent blood? Know that the terrible sentence of divine justice hangs over your head." Those about were firmly convinced that Ezzelino would have the intrepid preacher killed outright. But the tyrant, blanched and troubled, he fell at the feet of the saint and promised amendment. The blessings which St. Anthony spread were not to be confined to Italy. St. Francis sent him to France, where for 3 years he labored with blessed results in the convents of his order as well as in the pulpit. In all his labors he never forgot the admonition of his spiritual father that the spirit of prayer must not be extinguished. He spent the day in teaching, and heard the confessions of sinners till late in the evening. Then many hours of the night were spent in intimate union with God. Once a man, at whose home Anthony was spending the night, came upon the saint and found him holding in his arms a child of unspeakable beauty, and flooded about with heavenly light. It was the divine child Jesus. Anthony was soon to go with him to the eternal union. For some years past, Anthony had been living in Padua again. Due to his taxing labors and his austere practice of penance, he felt his strength so spent that he prepared himself for death. After receiving the last sacraments, he kept looking upward with a smile on his countenance. When he was asked what he saw there, he answered, "I see my Lord." Then he gave forth his soul on June 13th, 1231, when he was only 36 years old. Soon the children in the streets of the city were crying, "The saint is dead! Anthony is dead!" Pope Gregory IX enrolled him among the saints in the very next year. At Padua, a magnificent basilica was built in his honor, in which his holy relics were entombed in 1268, which has been made glorious with perpetual miracles up to the present day.